Welcome back to Nelson Media, and today we are breaking down episode 3 from the Amazon Prime series, Swarm. What's going on, everyone? We are breaking down the series Swarm episode by episode and discussing mental health concerns to see if we can diagnose what's going on with the characters. In the last episode, we learned that Dre has started killing random people that have made insensitive comments to Marissa or Naja on social media. Episode 3 opens with Dre sneaking into a random man's house and killing him, but not without first asking him,
"Who is your favorite artist?"
She tracked him down after he wrote a message saying that Naja couldn't keep a man happy on Twitter. The worst part about it is she actually looks like she's starting to enjoy all of this. After killing the man and raiding his snack cabinet, Dre gets ready to leave in his car. And she checks her phone and she's got a message from someone in her contacts named Marissa. Now, this is probably not a real thing, but we'll learn more about that later. And this message is directing her to someone named Alice Dudley. And this is a person who made critical comments about Naja on a video that is obviously a replay of the famous elevator fight between Jay-Z and Beyonce's sister Solange. Now, this woman Alice is portrayed as a conservative MAGA feminist, and so there's clearly meant to be some racial undertones. You still see Dre as part of that Swarm fanatic group that she's been in since she's a kid, and now she's investigating Alice, and she's looking up things like where she lives and what she's doing, so she's getting very stalkerish. So Dre ends up stalking Alice by going and showing up at her house and then following her over to the gym. She tries to follow her into the gym, but she ends up getting stopped by the receptionist. And crazy enough, in the case of mistaken identity, she's able to actually get in by a guy who thought that he knew her. Dre grabs a weight and meets Alice in the elevator. Then she gives Alice the question,
"Who's your favorite artist?"
Right before she's about to kill her, the elevator opens and a guy comes in. Dre gets a message from Marissa telling her to follow him, and now I believe that this message is purely psychosis. She must have something going on, like having multiple personalities or two identities, like she's both Dre and Marissa. I mean, looking at her phone, she's got no service. We talked about the possibility of prolonged grief disorder with that intense longing to be with the person that she lost, but now I think that we should consider a dissociative disorder. There are 3 types of dissociative disorders. 1 is dissociative identity disorder, 2 is dissociative amnesia, and 3 is depersonalization and derealization disorder. Disassociation is a disconnection between a person's thoughts, memories, feelings, actions, or a sense of who he or she is. This is a normal process that everyone has experienced. An example of a disassociation for you is daydreaming, or highway hypnosis, or getting wrapped up or getting lost inside of a movie or inside of a book. It involves losing touch with awareness of your immediate surroundings. During a traumatic experience, such as like an accident or a disaster or a crime, disassociation can help you tolerate what might otherwise be too difficult to bear. In situations like these, a person might disassociate the memory of a place, the circumstances of what happened in the place, or the feelings about the event. It's like mentally escaping from fear, pain, and horror. This might later on make it difficult for you to remember details of what the experience was, and we see a lot of survivors from accidents or disasters reporting that they have difficulty like recalling what happened. Dissociative identity disorder is associated with overwhelming experiences or traumatic events that happened in childhood, and it used to be referred to as multiple personality disorder. And this means inside of you there are 2 distinct identities or personality states that are accompanied by changes in your behavior, memory, and thinking, and gaps in your memory about everyday events and past traumatic events. Dissociative amnesia involves not being able to recall information about yourself. This isn't the same as like you simply just forgetting something. The amnesia is usually related to a traumatic or a stressful event, and dissociative amnesia is associated with like experiences of a childhood trauma. People might have limited awareness of the memory loss, and a lot of times many minimize how important the memory loss is at that particular part in time, so sometimes it's very hard to diagnose. Depersonalization and derealization disorder involves significant and ongoing recurring experience of either one or both of those conditions. Depersonalization is experiences of unreality or detachment from a person's mind, self, or body. People might feel like they're outside of their body and they're watching the events that are happening to them. Derealization is experiences of unreality or detachment from a person's surroundings. So it might feel like people in the world or the world around you is not real, almost like a fantasy or dream-like state. During these altered experiences, the person is aware of reality and that their experience is unusual. The experience is often very distressful, and even though a person may appear to be unreactive or lacking in emotion, they do still understand what's going on. So the fact that we're seeing these types of things in Dre actually gives us more confidence in our original diagnosis of PTSD. Because in PTSD, it can have dissociative symptoms of amnesia or depersonalization and derealization. But enough about dissociation. Back to the episode. So Dre follows the guy in the jacket back to his house and sneaks in his house, only to be confronted by him. She poses as an abuse victim and gains his sympathy, and he immediately starts flirting with her. They spend a little time together, and the guy, whose name is George, offers to make Dre something to eat. And when it's put in front of her, she sees that it's very health-conscious foods. And you know this doesn't work for Dre because you know she needs her junk food. So at first, it seems like we look at George and all this healthy food and that he's just really a health-conscious guy. But the way he describes his eating habits sound more like he has an eating disorder or a food addiction. Listen to what he says.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of healthy. I used to be obese, 380 pounds. The girl I used to see, she was also overweight, and she died of a heart attack. Since then, I had to be on it. I work out twice a day, fast for 16 out of 24 hours. I don't drink. I only eat this, oatmeal, salad. On the weekend, I have a smoothie, no gluten. All my donuts and snacks, I just had to give away.
Notice the lack of variety in his diet and the trauma he experienced in his loss that led to his reasoning for his food choices. Dre ends up respecting his food decision, but she throws in a little subtle temptation about giving in.
Sometimes it's good to give in.
Later that night, Dre sneaks into the kitchen and gets her snacks, and it causes George to wake up and confront her. Dre causes this man to relapse into his addiction, and the two go on a junk food binge at night, followed by a purge in the morning. And binging and purging is actually a thing. It's very common in eating disorders, and it involves overeating or binge eating, followed by vomiting or purging, either self-induced or with like the use of like laxatives or something like that. And this is why it's so important to choose your lovers and your friends carefully. If you're the type of person that needs an accountability partner to protect you from yourself, you cannot choose a person that has an addictive personality. Anyway, George invites Dre to go to the concert with him and watch him work as a security guard, and this leads to Dre being in the same place as Naja. Dre ends up locking George up in a refrigerator with a cake, like a bad accountability partner, and she sneaks into an after party where she's hit on by a Jesse Williams lookalike. And then when she comes up close, she gets up close and personal with her idol, Naja. And this triggers a dissociative reaction of derealization in Dre. The derealization creates this almost dreamlike state where Dre is visualizing eating a fruit, but in reality, she's biting Naja. And this is where the episode ends, with Dre running out of the building while being mistaken for the girl from Love and Basketball. I loved how they portrayed disassociation in this episode. It really makes you think about what people feel like when they experience it. We definitely saw some symptoms that fit with PTSD in this episode, but what do y'all think? Does she fit any other mental illness or disorder you can think of? Let's talk about it in the comments, and I'll see you in episode 4.